Hi, we're here today at Borders with Pat Conroy. Pat, welcome. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
It is a complete pleasure.
So this is a real departure for you because this is not a work of fiction. This is about your favorite books and the books that have touched you. Tell us what inspired this book.
I wanted very badly to write the books that had affected me in my life, made me want to become a writer, make me die for books, make me live for books, make me crave books like no one I've ever met. I sometimes meet them in bookstores, I sometimes meet them in booksellers, but generally I've loved to read as much as anybody I've ever seen in my entire life. And I wanted to get some of this spirit across in a book before I died.
Well, your editor, I think, said it very well, that this is a life of passionate reading, is the way that she describes your life. Tell me about some of your favorites.
You know, when I was on my way up here, and this happens to readers, why didn't I mention this one? Why did I mention that? What happened to me? Did I go nuts? It happens, you get a book. And I remember my mother starting me out when I was 5 years old. Gone with the Wind had changed her life. She had no idea how politically bomb-like Gone with the Wind would become when I became an adult. But what she did, she sat on a bed, me on one side, my sister on the other. She had a beautiful, mellifluous Southern accent. And she always killed me because she would take the exact moment and she'd say, "Now, Pat and Carol Ann, you will notice that the voluptuous, lovely, charming, and cunning Scarlett O'Hara will remind you very much of your own mother, Pat Conroy."
That's great.
And we'd look, and there'd be this beautiful mother, and she'd be grinning and winking at it. And then she'd say, "And that dashing rebel, handsome, no good, carousing Rhett Butler will remind you of your fighter pilot father who was over in Korea fighting our nation's enemy." Then she would take things, Melanie Wilkes. And also these characters for books, she says, "Doesn't she remind you of that tacky Aunt Helen down there in Orlando?" My mother took every character of this novel and applied it to somebody in our lives. And I think it was the first time I ever realized, or was supposed to realize, there was absolutely a relationship between life and art.
How did reading make you a better writer?
You know, first of all, I think I copied, shamelessly. Someone had asked me, I went through a Hemingway phase, and my Hemingway phase where all my senses were clear and crisp and
Short.
Snap, crackle, and pop and short. And they got great emotion through 3 words. And he looked, you knew, he knew. And that'd be a love scene. He looked, she knew, he knew. Boom, a Hemingway love scene. I went through that. Then I went through Thomas Wolfe. I had a teacher, charismatic teacher, Gene Norris, give me a book called Thomas Wolfe, Look Homeward Angel, when I was 16 years old. I went nuts. I simply went crazy. And Wolfe had the opposite problem. Then all of a sudden, my words were highfalutin and overdone, overblown, overwritten, highly oxygenated, totally ridiculous. And I wrote that like that for about 10 or 15 years until I could finally calm it down into something legible. So all these books that I would read, and I would read, how do you learn how to become a woman? And so I'd read Jane Austen. How do you want to become a woman a man could love? I remember reading Henry James, and I thought, Isabel Archer, I need to find a girl like Isabel Archer. And so reading was not only educative to me, it was life-changing. I simply changed my life and who I was going to be. Then in 1980, I think I know everything, and a young woman from Latin America gave me 100 Years of Solitude. And I remember reading the first sentence, and I said, I don't know one thing about writing. I don't know one thing about literature. I don't know one thing about anything.
Was that profound for you?
Oh, I went crazy over this. And, I was sorry I didn't write magical realism, but I felt like if I write magical realism coming out of Beaufort, South Carolina, somebody's going to think I'm an idiot. So I couldn't do that, but it directed me.
So had you not been a writer, I know at one point you were a teacher, what else would you have done with your life had you not been a writer?
I hope, I would have had to tone down my personality, there's no question. And I think I've been a teacher and a happy one for the rest of my life, because I do love talking about these books. I do love telling, what they can do in your life. I've got a guy on Fripp Island now, hasn't read anything. So he says, what can I read? I said, I just flipped over Catcher in the Rye today. And I said, you don't get that guy. Don't even start. But there are books that lead you places. There's little books that can mean the world, that can knock a hole in your head. To Kill a Mockingbird. You can read James Baldwin. You can read the autobiography of Malcolm X. And you just go on and on to so many books. And I even had things where I'd say, okay, I need to read Balzac. I want to go to Paris. And if I'm going to read Balzac, then I must read Madame Bovary. And then I must read... So when I'd go there, I didn't go to the graves of all these writers. Go to the graves of Proust. Head over to England, and they have these, fabulous graves of these writers everywhere. And so it changes your life, it changes your travel. It changes where you want to go, what you want to be. And I was thinking, how many things in life do that? Doesn't seem like very many do.
Words are powerful.
Oh.
Now, this is going to be a hard question to answer. But if you only had one book that you were going to have with you for the rest of your life and read again and again, what would it be?
Because I just said 100 Years of Solitude, I'll go with that. And I reread it again before I came up here. And I wondered if the first sentence was going to have the power. And it did. It knocked my brains out. I thought, holy God. And the first sentence was something like, many years later, as he faced the firing squad, Colonel Aureliano Buendia looked out toward that distant day when his father took him out of the jungle to discover ice. I'm thinking, okay, I remember reading it when I was a kid, and I said, okay, he's facing a firing squad. He has to remember a day. He's not even paying attention to the firing squad. His father took him out of the jungle to discover ice. And I'm thinking about my first sentence. He walked down to the store for a candy bar. He walked over and picked up the baseball. My sentences didn't seem to have the resonance, the far-reaching force, the explosive force of this one sentence of this one magnificent book. And I think that book changed me so much that I still want to take that with me, if that's the one I have to go with.
Of your own writing to date, what's the work that you're most proud of?
Here's one I always remember the best. I love the one I just finished because I write by hand. It's painful. It's horrible. My hand now cramps up. I'm old. But the book that changed my life by writing it the most, and I found out the book's changed lives. The Lord's discipline changed my life for the Citadel forever and ever. It'll never be the same. Can't be the same. But when I wrote The Great Santini, I hated my father with my body and soul. Never hated a guy like that. Never thought I'd hate a guy like that again. And to my utter and great surprise, it gave my father and I a way to build a bridge back to each other. And the book I'm writing right now is how Dad and I became best friends or good friends. Now, I had a lot better friends than Dad, but good friends before he died, and that was more than I ever expected.
Wow, that's amazing. Well, thank you so much for being here with us today. I think that this is going to be a book that people are going to treasure for a long time because it's going to introduce them to books that they might otherwise not have picked up.
But it can take them to the ends of the world and back.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for being here. It's a
Pleasure.
pleasure to meet you.
No, it's great.
Thank you.